Got it. Ready? Shift, take 2.
All right. You ready?
So hungry. I'm ready.
I am really hungry too. Gosh. 80% of the time in the filmmaking community, it's just talking about what we want to eat.
Filmmaking is hunger.
Yes.
Essentially.
We're just, because we forget to eat. That's the reason.
We're so in the zone when we're on set, and then we're like, oh, eating? I don't have time for that.
Or like we're so focused on editing that we just like, oh, it's 3 o'clock.
Yeah, for what,
I
breakfast?
skip breakfast and lunch.
Yeah.
Except Alex he constantly snacks. You eat
Dude, I stay sick.
apples. Wait, I know your diet. I know your diet to a T because I've been working with you for a year now. It's apples, oranges, sometimes bananas, and string cheese.
Yeah.
What?
I like apples and bananas.
I like apples.
Me too, bro.
Me too. Don't forget to bring a towel.
That was a good starting goal.
Yeah, there you go. There's a clip for you, Carson. Just add that. All right. Hey, everyone. This is Shift Take 2. My name's Cameron. I'm the creative director and director at Shift.
I'm Alex. I'm the in-house cinematographer here at Shift.
Yeah. So this podcast is really going to be about everything that we're learning on the spot because we've been a film production agency for 3 years now, and we're constantly learning, and we make mistakes, and we're not perfect by any means. And so this whole podcast is really just going to be life experience, learning on the go, and just we're constantly growing. So in this episode, we're going to kind of talk about the stressors of the film industry and the things that really stress, I think, at least us, maybe everyone else too, from what I have gathered from other filmmakers, is just everything stressful within a production agency.
Yeah. Starting out, we're going to be talking about gear and just organizing it, if that's before, on set, and after set, and what that kind of looks like and why it's so stressful.
Yeah, we're not the best at this part. And actually, everything that we're talking about, some more than others, we're not good at. Gear organization in particular
It's the
is
worst.
really bad.
Yeah.
It's not the best. Like, I feel like we have seasons and moments and days of the week to where everything's in the right spot and where it should be.
Yeah.
But kind of like what we had talked about is that a lot of our gear at Shift is our own personal gear.
Yeah.
It's not the company's gear. There is some company gear and everything, but a lot of it's our own personal gear that we've acquired over the years. And so it's hard to keep everything organized as well as we're constantly moving around independently.
Yeah.
So it can be fixed, but it's also like, I don't know if that's an excuse or if it's a good excuse.
It's a mild excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have excuses. I'll make an excuse for just about anything.
Yeah. But we've been it was a few shoots ago, and we got to set, we had the FX3 in the red, and then I forgot the lens just completely.
Yeah.
So I think that the biggest thing is just making sure that your gear is prepared and ready for you to just walk out the door with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's that extra step of making sure everything's where it should be.
Yes.
And it becomes really hard to do that when in a production setting, you're really busy and you have your own job on set and you're trying to do that. So I often will throw something in my Pelican and then later on I'm going to need that. And I'm like, oh crap, where did I put that?
Yes. And then even on set, during a production shoot, it's so easy to move your gear just everywhere and spread it out or put things in the wrong bag because you're on the fly, and then it kind of ruins the flow of a lot of things because if you put your V-mount battery in your backpack instead of the camera case where it's supposed to go, then when you send someone, you're like, hey, can you go grab a V-mount? And they're like, where is it? And you're like, could be here. It could also be somewhere else that I don't know. And so that can kind of be stressful, and then it gets even worse whenever you spread everything out on a production day, which it's so crazy because we're bad at this. We're not perfect, but that extra 5 seconds of just putting something back exactly where it belongs is going to set you up for success in the future. Because when you get back to your office, your home, and you're unloading all of your gear and equipment, everything's organized.
Yeah.
Because we've come back from shoots, a long day. We get back, 10 o'clock, midnight. We go in the office and we unload all the gear, and then nothing's organized and it's just spread out.
Yeah.
And then it's not motivating to put things back, especially after a long shoot.
I think like one of the big things that'll help. I feel like we do a better job on these bigger sets, but like when it's like a smaller job, we're just like, oh, we'll just grab like, this camera and a battery and we'll go. And so I think having like a prep day before the shoot would help huge amount, because the cameras and all the gear, the lighting, you're charging the batteries, everything's prepared on that prep day, and then you're set for the production day. Yeah. Whereas if you don't have that prep day, you're just hoping that things are charged and where there should be.
That's true. And if everything's organized, it's easier to prep beforehand, the pre-production. So keeping gear organized at the very beginning, pre-production, during production, and after production seems like a lot, but it's always like, it really is an easy thing. It seems like a burden. It seems annoying.
Seems like a burden, but it'll change the trajectory of your shoot. Yes. Really.
We have had moments to where our gear is organized. We're not always imperfect. Yeah. But we're never perfect. But
speaking of gear organization, I think something that goes along with that is storage and backing it up. You get back to from set, and same thing. You don't want to put your gear away.
Yes.
First thing you should do is dump that footage on whatever you have.
That's true. And gear like file management storage is always like been a stressful thing for me. I actually have a story about one time that my hard drive went out, and it was a cheap hard drive. So I went to Micro Center in St. Louis, and I was like, I need a hard drive, and I didn't have the money to spend it on a Lacy drive, and SSDs were not popular at this moment, and they were like also not affordable. They were like $500 starting price, so I couldn't afford that. I was like 18, 19, and I was broke. So I went to Micro Center, and I went to buy this hard drive, and I was looking at all the options, and I just picked the cheapest option that I could find. And I didn't buy another hard drive. That was the only hard drive that I had, and I had a lot of things on there. And one thing in particular was a recent gig that I got filming for an album release, like album release show for an artist. And I filmed it, and then like a week later, I like plugged it in and it was not working, and I lost everything. And so I learned that like spending more money on hard drives and SSD is like super important, and having backups. Yeah. And then, we could go into a lot of
I think that's like the hardest thing, especially like when you're starting out, like you want to buy a camera or a sick lens or something. And it's like storage. That's what I have to buy. But it's so true. Like,
yes,
I did kind of in the same way. I bought like the cheapest like storage I could. Yeah. And I think it was like 4 terabytes, and I had like years of footage on it. And hard drives like don't last, like they'll break eventually. And I lost like 4 terabytes of just footage. And luckily it was just like
so painful.
It's so painful because I'd plug it in my computer, and I was like going through every step to like try to fix it. It wouldn't work. And it's like hard to see like all that footage go away. But that it was just like dumb stuff that I filmed when I was a kid, so that was okay. But like when it comes to like a full production or anything like that, so definitely like spending the money and figuring out, especially as you grow a company or your freelance gig, like figuring out what works for you, if it's a RAID system or like the NAS system that we use. Maybe that's like Dropbox, even just something that like you can have multiple backups, redundancy, and staying organized. Like, I'm like the worst. Like I will like just make a whole bunch of folders and just be like, this seems right.
What's funny about Alex's organization system is that Alex sometimes types a little too fast than he's thinking, and he misspells things. So we filmed a beer fest one time, and I was looking for the beer fest footage. I couldn't find it, and he titled it Beef Fest. So it's like things like that, to where I go in the storage and it's like misspelled completely. It's not even this.
it's I have that
Which beef and beer, they're close,
Sure,
but you
sure.
know, different
Well-
kind of festival.
I've never like throughout all my like personal gigs and just even if I like go take photos for like the other day I just took photos and I didn't know what to name the folder.
Yeah.
So I think I ran it like I named the folder "Can I Pet Your Dog?" It had nothing to do with the sunset shoot or anything like that. And I think I named things just off of like what am I thinking in the moment? And it's not good for anyone else. Because then years later, I'd be like, I need these photos for this client. Frick, what did I call it? So
One time, Alex, this was a shared Dropbox folder to a client, and Alex named the folder like something about our friend Trevor. Like it was like Trevor couldn't. Do you remember what it was?
Like, frick, it was like I don't know what to name this, or yeah, I don't know what to name this folder.
Yeah.
And that was the folder title.
It got shared.
Yes, it was a shared folder to one of our clients, so he could see but Alex didn't know that. He didn't know that it was shared with a client. But that's Alex.
Organization in general, like gear, timelines,
Oh my god!
like
Yes.
everything.
And so, with all of what we just talked about, brings us to another file management thing: is backing things up, like what we're talking about with gear and stuff. And when you bring it back, having it organized, is having someone setting those expectations to
Yeah.
back up the footage.
So
And back it up fast.
Yeah.
To multiple things. Don't let it sit. I've actually heard horror stories from wedding filmmaker, and he let his SD card sit in his camera for like 2 days before he backed things up, and I guess the heat or something happened to the SD card, and it was just gone.
Yeah.
So it's important to just back up things as fast as you possibly can and do it right. Don't do what Alex does. And sometimes I do it too. Like I'll label folders, sort through. And so that I know, like,
that's
I need
worse
to sort
than
through.
me, man.
Is that worse? Because that's easy to find. I know I have to sort through that footage. Because
What do you mean you can't type in beef?
I don't know. But backing things up immediately on a multiple things. Don't cheap out on SSDs or hard
Yeah.
drives, and just get it all done. Label it correctly. Organize the crap out of it.
Yeah.
And you'll be set. And it takes no time.
Yeah.
And most of the time when you're backing things up, you're just sitting
just
there
sitting
anyway
there
because
anyway,
you're
yeah.
waiting. So just
Yeah.
do the extra 10 seconds to get everything up and running.
Yeah. And that'll make your client happy. Speaking
Yes.
of clients,
Speaking of clients.
client expectations and how
that is-
stressful that can be.
Yes, that can be stressful. Client expectations is one of those things that you don't know that it's bad until it's bad. Mm-hmm. Like you can, you might think that expectations are clear between you guys.
Yeah.
But then when you give them a project or you shoot something, whether it's photo or video or whatever it is in the creative industry, and then they come back to you and they're like, well, this isn't really what I asked for. And they're like, what? No, I thought, and then you go
Yeah.
back and maybe it was a phone call and now you have no proof.
Yeah.
You didn't have it in an email. So
Yeah.
email.
Yeah. Having something
Having records.
written down records.
Yes.
That's so important. I feel like I've shot a few things and I asked them, I was like, what are you looking for? And they just kind of told me a vague, thing. And I didn't ask any more questions. Like, cool, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I shot the thing, edited it, and they're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what did you want? Like, well, I wanted this. And I was like, well, you
Yeah.
didn't tell me. And it's that communication with both,
Yes.
like, if they don't give you much information, ask more questions and figure out,
Yeah.
like, because then you're going to have more stress on the
Ask a
end.
lot of questions and then ask the question. And then when they give you an answer, repeat that answer back to them
Yep.
and say, just
Yep.
making sure this is what we agreed to, send over a contract,
Yeah.
boom. And just communication with a client is super important, and it can seem stressful because it's a lot easier for a client to reach out and be like, I want this, and then you say thumbs up, we're good to go, then you shoot it. It's a lot easier because you don't have to communicate. But taking an extra 5 to 10 minutes in a day to just write up an email and get clarification
Yeah.
and expectations, like a most recent project, I was at an event last night and I was shooting a video and it was super clear. Everything was in email. I can look back at every information they gave me and all the questions that I had asked, and they gave me answers, and we agreed. I will be there for 3 hours. I will give you a 30-second highlight reel, and you get the raw footage for if you ever want to use it in the future. And signed a contract, payment, boom. They're super happy.
Yeah.
But I've also been on the other end to where I have not done that, and then clients like, yo, I kind of thought that we agreed to this. I was like, well, if I remember on the phone call, and it's, you know, he said, she said, he said, she said kind of situation. So, keep records.
Yeah.
Email is the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm not against it at all, but I try not to let clients as much as possible have my phone number for texting.
Sure.
Because then your text can just get piled up. And it's actually easier for me to respond to emails.
Yeah.
Because I know it's business.
Yeah.
Rather than text, because text can get lost. And with my ADHD mind, I might forget. I might see it and then forget it. So email's the way to go.
Yeah.
Phone calls, you have no records of it unless you record the phone call. But that's, I don't know, whatever I guess you prefer.
Yeah.
So
another thing like is not only like knowing the client's expectations, but your expectations. Like I think in the past, like I've gotten revisions and then they just keep wanting revisions after revisions. And I'm like, I didn't tell them like, so like when I have like a freelance gig or whatever, and they're like, all right, you know, what are the deliverables? I'll be like, cool. Like I'll give you this, and you can have 2 revisions, up to 2. And then beyond that, it's like, okay, you have to pay more. Cause that gives me the comfort of like knowing like, I don't have all this extra work that they're just going to keep piling on for essentially free.
Yeah.
Because that can be stressful.
Yeah.
And annoying.
Yes. So over communicate, and it makes everything less
So much
stressful
better.
from start to finish of deliverables. Just communicate, because it can be stressful. And even if you are a good communicator, sometimes clients are difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're easy. Sometimes they're hard. Sometimes just whatever. But I think that it's the same way also with like on production sets with people that you're working with. 100%. So like you and me, or us and Zeb, or Carson or Nick, or if we hire out and contract crew members on set, it can be stressful to manage people. Yeah. It can be stressful to communicate with people that are on set too, because there might be someone on set, if you don't clearly communicate with them, that they don't know their role or they don't know the expectations you have. So then they're like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So like casting vision and communicating clearly to your crew and your team, make sure everyone's on the same page. I have a bad habit of just thinking that people know what I'm thinking. And so then whenever everyone's confused, I'm like, no, this is what I was thinking. And they're like, well, you didn't say that. And I was like, well, yeah, I did not, but I am now, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think like we're, especially with the roles we have, like director and DP, we're kind of like the heads of departments, and we need to be on the same page. Like I need to know exactly what your vision is so that I can, you know, display that into the video. And then that also helps me like, oh, is this, you know, lighting moody? Do I need to add it like warm, like whatever? And then I can direct that to the gaffer and the grip and all that stuff. And if, you know, I feel like I'm new to this like kind of set life, and I am not the best with communicating like what I'm thinking. Like I'm like, I want it to look like this, but I don't know how to say it. And so I'm like, the gaffer's like, all right, what do you think? And I'm just like, you know,
good lighting.
And
make light good.
So learning how to communicate your vision, I think, is a huge important, you know, thing that you need to have, so that later on, like, I feel like if you don't communicate, and let's say in my position, I'm talking to the gaffer and then they didn't light it a certain way I wanted it to. Now you're stressed. You're like, oh, this isn't what I was thinking. So just telling them straight up and be like, this is what I was thinking. And communicating that.
Yeah. And those can be stressful moments on set. Those can be like super stressful, and you might get in a spot, if you don't practice communicating with the crew, you might get in a spot where you feel stressed and overwhelmed, and you can't make a decision, because being in the film industry is all about making decisions. You gotta make decisions fast, in a lot of cases, and quickly. And that's something that
I was gonna say, like, I was shooting a short film in here. You were the whatever AC, and like this is like not the first time, but like this is the first time like I have a crew, and like I feel like a lot of pressure in the first part. And so the AD is like, which one's the A cam? Because we had 2 cameras, and I was like, and I remember the first time. So we set up the first shot. It's like a master, and like he's like, all right, is the frame set? And I'm just like, is it? Oh my, is this how I want it to look? And it was all that stress, and just like having the confidence as well of like your skill and how you want it. Just like, so just on set in general is kind of stressful.
Yeah. Over communicate.
Yeah.
Over communicate. Like until you are annoying is the biggest thing that I would recommend is just communicate clearly.
Yeah.
Until they give you the okay, I understand.
Yeah.
As soon as someone says, I understand you, then you communicated your point across.
Yeah.
And so just making sure that you do that on a consistent basis, practice with it. Even if you're not a bad, or if you are a bad communicator, you can practice being a better communicator. I've been bad my whole life, and I'm constantly practicing to this day.
I'm still very bad.
Yeah.
So
You're not the worst though. I've seen worse.
I'm getting there.
You're getting there.
I'm getting there.
Well, that's all that we have for this episode. It was our first episode.
Yeah.
Dang.
It went well. Heck yeah. More to come.
We talked. We did it.
We
I
did
didn't
it.
think I was going to be able to talk.
This whole thing is about communication. I think we communicated well.
I think we got the point across. Yeah. People are watching us. They're like, I did not learn a single thing from
What
that.
did he say?
Like, this was boring as heck. I'm never watching that again. But thank you for anyone that watched this. We get 2 views on this. I'll be really happy.
It's going to be me and you.
Yes, too. Well, yeah. And Carson, because he gets editing it.
There we go.
Yeah, Carson's gonna, I'm so tired of this. Guys, I think we should stop the podcast. Well, we will see you guys in the next one. And that's a wrap for episode 1.
All of our social media in the link below. Check us out. Hope you have a great day. Peace. See you.